destroyed the YA zombie romance section. The YA zombie romance section!
So there's a particular movie that came out recently that sadly got the short end of the stick. That being Dreamworks' Gillman Teenage Kraken, a movie that had a lot but sadly couldn't get it all. This was a movie that a good friend of mine worked on that people had a fair amount of hype for when it was first announced, since it seemed like a pretty interesting idea, especially since it involved an entity that is basically glorified calamari.
Bazing!
Also, the giant kaiju aspect definitely got eyeballs on it, but once the trailers hit, the intrigue went away pretty fast, and to be honest, those trailers were pretty bad, but we'll get into that a bit later. Bad trailers aside, was Ruby Gillman's actual quality something that could push against the tide? My honest answer is yes. It's not the biggest game changer out there, but it has a lot of heart and charm to it to make it a favorite for many. So what's this film's nautical tale?
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
The story. I'm asking about the story. Anyway, the plot revolves around this teenage girl named Ruby Gillman who wants to go to the dance with her crush Connor. Things go wrong for her when she grows to the sides of a building and finds out she's the next in royal line of Krakens to be queen, as her people are at war with the mermaids. She ends up meeting a new schoolgirl named Chelsea who's also a mermaid that tries to befriend her. Then Ruby uses her grandma's help to train her powers, but things might not be all that cracked up to be with the new girl. So Ruby must keep her secret about her powers while learning how to use them. Now, sure, this all sounds like typical YA coming of age stuff you've seen before, but let me tell you, this thing has loads of charm, honestly. The way everything works with this movie makes you enjoy the simple but fun ride it puts you on. It doesn't go far and above, but it doesn't really need to. The film gets across what it needs to in a way that I can see a lot of people getting into. It manages to somehow be big but not be that big of a story. It tends to go for a more personal resolve that needs to be settled by the characters rather than any intergalactic or big world-ending event or anything like that. Ruby is a big factor in that regard. She's such a bean of a character, a pure nervous ball of teenage angst, so it's not hard to imagine how people can cling to her. She's pretty sweet and a shy girl that gets caught in the craziness of her family history, and let's face it, we've all had some crazy family members here and there, but I think Ruby's family drama takes the cake just based on scale alone.
That's a huge bitch!
She has to defend this kingdom of hers that she had no knowledge of while also learning how her powers work on top of helping Chelsea in getting some special trident. This little noodle got so much thrown onto her, plus she needs to ask her crush to the dance. I'm surprised she doesn't go all Clash of the Titans on everyone. Her plight clearly is out of the realm of IRL problems, but it still makes you sympathize with her since you remember she's just a teenage girl trying to handle all this crazy shit at once. Plus, she has to keep her secret by saying she's from the made-up land of Canada. Not an easy feat. Almost as bad as Toonerific Tariq trying to keep a secret about him competing on Total Drama. Hope you win, bro. But I digress. Now there's the supporting cast that also adds on to her problems. Her mother, Agatha, for instance, is someone who deeply cares for her daughter, but isn't going about it in the right ways. She kept a secret as big as this from Ruby her entire life, which isn't fair to her at all. This secret included the fact that Ruby has a grandma. Of course, you get why she did it, since what mother would want their child to be a part of some ancient battle of sea creatures? Though I do wonder if the losing side ends up getting served up with some butter and lemons, but enough about my hunger. You understand the nuances they go for here, where you're not fully against anyone in this story. They treat this trope pretty well, and it brings a good sense of tension between them that makes you hope they resolve things by the end. There's also Ruby's grandma, who is the queen of the Krakens. She acts as the old generation trying to use the new generation in their old conflicts. It's not malicious, but she's clearly not operating with the best of intentions. It even drove a wedge between her and her daughter because she was focusing way too much on her prejudice and wanting to fight rather than focusing on just protecting her kingdom and her family. It really can get you to think, like, wow, you really gotta let that warrior spirit of yours go once you bring in family. It's just some good old-fashioned generational drama. The guys in Ruby's family are a fun bunch with not much to them. Just a group of guys that act as pure comic relief that gets some pretty good and even brutal laughs.
We'll be buried in the dirt. Don't like water.
man's off himself. Overall, the family has a fun dynamic to them, and there genuinely is good tension built up around the whole being a Kraken and being queen stuff, that you do actually want to see everything turn out well for everybody, because they are nice and likable characters. It's just they clearly have some missteps in terms of their judgment on things, particularly Ruby's mom and grandma. And now we come to Chelsea, who has that I'm the popular new girl attitude. She sounds like a straight up Valley Girl stereotype. It's kind of ridiculous. I can guarantee that the words "as if" is a priority in her vocabulary. It really would shock me if it wasn't. She almost breaks a mold by actually sticking with Ruby in her time of need, but the key word is almost, because we learn pretty quickly that she's got bad intentions. I mean, when you think about it, no one's that nice right off the bat. Usually, sometimes you gotta realize, hey, this person's clearly not on the up and up. Especially when you find out she herself is a mermaid. Of course, a lot of us learned this part through the trailers, which, let's talk about it, this movie got screwed over pretty hard by the marketing. The trailers they showed basically gave away the beginning, middle, and end to the movie. Now, they weren't the most detailed in this, but there's definitely some major stuff that's like, that should not have been in the trailer. We should have learned about that more through actually watching the movie, particularly the whole giant battle that happens in the trailer. It's like, that feels like the third act battle. Like, come on, you can't just throw that in the trailer. There's some stuff that we didn't really get from the trailers, but you still feel like you know how it all will play out. This, I'm pretty sure, was a big deterrent for people, since they might have felt there was no reason to watch the movie now, since they knew what was gonna happen. There's also some small contentions that people felt. Some thought the movie was actively taking a jab at Disney's Little Mermaid, which it is with Chelsea's design, but no, they thought it's targeted at the live action one with the black Ariel. Sounds pretty asinine, I know, but that's how some saw it, even though that's more coincidence than anything. I don't know how you could jump to the conclusion of racism on that part, because that's the biggest problem, is that people felt the movie was trying to somehow be racist for making fun of Chelsea, ergo making fun of Ariel. But it clearly was going after the one from our childhoods more than anything. It wasn't even thinking about no live action movie that nobody even remembers after it dropped anyway. Like, come on, people. It makes no real sense to me. But for the most part, it's just a case of bad trailer-citis that plagues way too many good movies nowadays, which I felt heavily when it came to this movie. I saw the trailers and thought the animation looked okay at first, because it really wasn't showcasing the animation that strongly. It kind of looked very basic. But after actually seeing it, I think they sold it short big time in that department. This movie is gorgeous. I love the textures on every surface of this film. And then you get to the background designs, which are to die for. Ruby lives in this nautical themed town, and it looks like a place you want to get an apartment in. The intricate way the town works, I can't get enough of. I want to visit every building, especially using the little water canals they have to get to some of them using boats. And then the way the characters moves is so fun. Since Ruby and her family are basically glorified squids, you get a lot of them being rubbery and bendy and such with their movements, which gives the movie a good feel of distinction. I love the lighting in this, especially with the way they utilize bioluminescence on the Kraken bodies. It's just magnificent. The different body types all the people have is also a nice detail that I really appreciate from this. I always love it when even the background characters have unique design philosophies to them. In terms of negatives, I can't really think of any, because it does what it wants to do so well. It's not trying to be more than it wanted to be. It gives you a really nice, simple story, and we kind of could use more of that, honestly, in theaters. Just something that looks really nice on the big screen and is just a fun sit down to watch. All in all, this is a very sweet, charming film. The characters are very likable and have good, fairly relatable problems that allows you to connect with them. You'll be able to get a good laugh with just about every character here. The look of this movie is to die for. I'm a sucker for nautical themed places, and this basically enters a top 3. Now, if I could just figure out the other 2. The way things play out for this story, you might end up wanting a series based on this movie. And judging by how Dreamworks keeps making shows out of their movies, I could see this one getting its own. It's not going to be the thing that changes the way we think about filmmaking, but it doesn't need to be. It has a message that is strong on its own, and it tells it in a way that leaves you satisfied. It's effective in its simplicity, and I definitely say give this a watch, since this is one film we shouldn't let drown.
Thank you.